Hey everyone, it's Andrew Brown, and we are taking a look at VPCs. Before we start utilizing the CLI to create resources with it, I think it is worth our time to do ClickOps with VPCs, as there are a lot of components, and really the easiest way to make VPCs is through ClickOps. So it's generally how I would do it, but I wanted to take both approaches here. But what we'll do is go to the top here and type in VPC. We'll make our way over to the VPC management console. You're going to see a lot of stuff here on the left-hand side. This just keeps growing and growing. Hopefully the UI does not change on us anytime soon, but this is what it looks like currently. And, some of these things are VPC and some of these things are not necessarily VPC, but they interact with VPC. So just understand that if you click through something like Cloud WAN, it's going to take you somewhere else. This will take you to the network manager, or for example, we have something like the DNS firewall, wherever that is here on the left-hand side. And this is technically a Route 53 product, so it remains in VPC. Oh, here we go. So now it says Route 53. Notice how it switches over. It's still in here, but it's not there. So understand that VPC is its own thing, but it's also EC2, and it's can appear as other services. Anyway, what I want to accomplish here is creating a new VPC, but before we do that, let's go take a look at our current VPCs. And you'll notice I have two here. If you are looking at yours and you've never done anything in your account, you should only have one. If you scroll over to the right, it should be the default VPC. I think that it would be this 172.31.00.16. Notice there's no IPv6 CIDR block by default, as that is just how the default ones are. And this one here was actually, I was trying to delete it before I started this video, but I can't because this one is a shared VPC from another account. So we'll get to that later on, but if I go to something else, let's say I went to Europe, over in Frankfurt, Germany, I should just see one VPC. There it is, and notice it's 172.31.00/16. I'm going to go back to CA Central 1 since I'm in Canada and that's where I like to operate. But let's go ahead and create ourselves a new VPC. So there is obviously a few ways to do this, and we'll go ahead and create VPC, and we'll be presented with two options. You can create only the VPC or VPC and more. And so VPC and more is going to produce everything you need. So it's going to create the VPC, subnets, route tables, the internet gateway. In this case, it's showing, if you scroll on down here, it's adding a VPC endpoint, so I can just say none. So notice that vanished there. But this gives you a really good visual of a basic VPC and how to get started. Now, I don't think we can do 10.0.0.0.16 because if we go back over to here, I think that one already exists. It does. So I think we would end up with a conflict here, and I don't think we could do this one. But what I'll do is I'll just copy this and paste it in. Let's see what happens if we try to create it. So I'm going to go down below, and again, we can adjust this to say we have 3 AZs. I'm going to do 1 for now. And we could say we have 0 private subnets and 1 public subnet to keep this simple. This is actually really nice. We'll go ahead and say create the VPC. And we'll see if it actually works. It actually created it, which I'm really surprised. I'm going to go back here. We have 2 that have the same CIDR block range. So I'm actually surprised that I was able to do that, but I should point out that you should not have VPCs that overlap in their CIDR ranges. So we're not going to want to have that, okay? So we'll go ahead and delete it. I really thought we were going to hit like something that says it wouldn't work. But notice when you go ahead and delete, it actually tries to remove all the associated resources. So we'll go ahead and type in delete. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a VPC from scratch. And again, we're not supposed to use this existing address, but I'm going to keep things really simple. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my VPC, and we'll go and mirror that IP address. That's 172.31.00, 172.31.00/16. I think that's what it is. That's usually the standard size for it. If you're not familiar with CIDR block, there's a website called sdir.xyz. It's been around forever. And if you put in the number here on the end, it will show you the size of your of how you're splitting it. So if we have 16, we're going to end up with 65,532 IP addresses. There's actually less than this because there are some reserved IP addresses, but that's pretty much what there is there. But if we scroll on down, We can go ahead and create our VPC. We have some options, whether we want to have an IPv6 CIDR block. Still going to say no. It could be IPAM allocator, Amazon provided CIDR block, but I'll just say no for now. For tenancy, we want to have a default. I didn't even know they had dedicated. I would assume that would cost additional money. Select dedicated, ensure that the instance launched in the VPC are run on dedicated tenancy instances regardless of the tenancy attribute. So I guess that would have to do with dedicated EC2 instances. Maybe you need a specialized VPC for that. The reason I don't know is because I rarely ever launch dedicated instances. We'll go ahead and create our VPC. And we've created it, but notice that we do not have any components underneath, so we're going to have to go ahead and create them. So let's go and create our subnet. And we'll select our VPC, my VPC. We'll just say my subnet 01. And we'll choose any AZ. You could just say no preference. It would randomly choose. We'll say that there. And these buttons weren't here before, so that's kind of interesting. But the CIDR block is going to be very similar. So we say 172.31.0.0/20, I think. Again, I don't know what these buttons are, but that's nice that they're there. But the idea is that when you create your, there we go. When you do this, that's really nice. Okay, so the thing is we put in our default number, and before when you would put in a CIDR range, you'd actually have to calculate what the next number was. So if you had 24, and you said, give me the next number in range, you could just do that. And so I'm thinking here, yes, it increments, so you don't have to do the math. And here, if you want to change the CIDR block size, so if I do 20, notice it's incrementing differently. If I go up, it increments differently. If I go this way, okay, so just understand that there is some logic there. And I do have a section on, in one of my courses, I have a section on doing like CIDR math. So we do cover that there, but to be honest, I never remember it myself, and I usually just look at other referenced stuff, but apparently we can keep it really simple. And I'll say 20. Let's go take a look at what the size 20 is here. So if we do 20, that gives us 4,000. If we did 24, that gives us 56. So in reality, we'd probably want it to be 20, because if we're splitting up that 65,000, we don't want to have super small subnets, but we don't want to have subnets that are super giant either. So 20 seems good, and it even tells you over here how many there are. So that is very useful as well. So I'll go ahead and create this subnet. Actually, before we do, it looks like we can add two subnets at the same time. Let's go do that. So here will be my second subnet, 02. We'll let it choose wherever it wants to go. But now what we can do is just copy this one here. Okay, and then we can just hit up, or sorry, right, and then we get the next one, and we don't have conflicts. We'll go ahead and create that. So now we have our subnets. If we go back to our VPC, and we go down here, and we go to our resource map, now we have our subnets. We need to have our route table configured. It comes with a route table by default, but we can explicitly associate these subnets with the route table. So what we'll do is go over to route tables here, and I'm looking for that new one. We have a lot more than I'm expecting. We have some shared ones. So really, it's just these three that we're focused on. We know that it's not the default one. And this one has two explicitly associated with it. So I don't think it's this one. I think it's this one here. And the way we can match that up is by looking at the VPC. So if I just click through here, this VPC is not showing its name for some weird reason, but if we carefully look here, 0C9, and we go back here, 084, so it isn't what we thought it would be. If we want to really quickly find which one it is, what we could also do is just go back to our VPCs and grab the VPC ID, and I think if we were to paste it in here like this, yeah, VPC, click that first and do this, hit enter. It would sort it for that one, but it's not. Let's go back over here and take a look. This one's 009F22. So just carefully looking here at our route tables, 009F2. Are we not in the same region? Why can't I seem to find this route table? We'll copy this here. Weird. Maybe we need to refresh this page. Oops. Refresh. Okay. Oh, okay, there we go. So for whatever reason, Even though we're clicking around, it apparently had some cache client information. So now we refresh it, and it's a lot easier to go over here and take a look, and we see my VPC nice and clear. We're going to go over to our subnet association, and we want to see if there are already subnets. And so you'll see that these ones are implicitly associated because this is the default subnet. But if we wanted to, we could explicitly associate them, and you really should when you can. Okay, we go back over to our VPC here, our resource map. I mean, nothing has changed there, so that's still pretty straightforward. Notice that we don't have any outbound connections, so what we'd have to do is update our route table to do that. And notice if we click this, it says one route, including local. So I'll go back and click into our route table here. And what we'll do is we'll add a new route. So we'll go ahead and say edit routes, and I'll add a new route. And we want to add one to the internet gateway. But here's the thing, we don't have an internet gateway, so before we can actually do that, we'll have to create an IGW. So on the left-hand side, we're looking for internet gateway, and we'll create one. We'll say my IGW. We'll go ahead and create that. So we have it, and I'll go back over to VPCs, and we'll select our VPC, and close these other tabs here. And what I want to do is go back into that route table. Okay. And we will edit the routes, and we'll add the route. And we want this to go to 0000, so it goes everywhere. And then we can drop this down to Internet Gateway. And I mean, there should be an IGW for us to choose. Actually, before that will work, we'd actually have to associate the IGW with our VPC. So we'll go back over here to our IGW. And notice that it's detached, so we'll go ahead and checkbox this, and we'll have to attach this VPC. We'll drop it down to my VPC, and then we'll go back over to our routes. And if we drop this down, does it show up? No, so we'll just remove it, and we will try to add that again. Okay, notice it's still not showing up, just because we'll have to go back and re-enter it, because you know sometimes these pages are just whatever client data they pulled at the time you clicked it. So if you go back, sometimes they will actually then show up. So we'll go back into here, and there it is. Okay, great. And so we want this to be 0000/0, so it goes to everywhere. And so now we have created our VPC, and it's using the same one as our default one, which, again, I'm really surprised we're able to do that without conflicts, but yeah, that is really straightforward. So let's go ahead and delete that. And we'll say delete. And so now what I want to do, and notice it's deleting all the resources. We didn't have to individually delete them. But now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and set up a VPC using the AWS CLI. So what we'll do is we'll make our way over to GitHub. Okay. And we have that AWS examples repo. And I'm going to launch this up in Gitpod. So I'm going to hit the open button. If you want to use code spaces, you can. If you want to download the repo or do this locally, but you will have to configure AWS CLI. We talk about this again and again over in labs. So if you didn't do the setup in the beginning of this course, go ahead and do that so that you know, you're not getting confused here. But we'll go ahead and launch up our Gitpod environment. And this already comes pre-installed with AWS CLI. It's going to go ahead and install it, which is configured in the Gitpod YAML. So it's starting up these tasks on the right-hand side. You can see I have other things configured. I'm going to make my way over to the AWS CLI. I'm going to just type in clear. I'm going to type in AWS STS get caller identity. It's been a while since I made a video. Not to you. It seems like I just made it yesterday, but I'm checking to see what account this is for. So this is for 98238. So I'm going to go back over here. 98238. So I believe it is this account. And I think I'm able to make stuff. So what we'll do is make a new folder on the left-hand side called VPC. And in here, we'll just make a new folder here called basics. And I'm going to create a new file here. I'm going to make it a bash script. So this will be vpc.sh, or we'll just call it, sorry, we'll, I'm just trying to decide here how I want to do that. Yeah, we'll just make it a executable file. So we'll just say VPC. And so I want to turn this into a bash script. So we'll drop this down here. And I'm just looking for any other file that has a bash script in it, like this one. Nope. Maybe in our bin. Here we go. So I just want to copy this here, paste, allow. And so now what I want to do is just write some VPC commands. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create our VPC. We want to create an IGW. We want to attach an IGW. We'll need to, like a route table will get created by default when we create the VPC, but we want to explicitly associate subnet. Whoops. Subnet. I'm going to say create a new subnet. Associate a subnet. Add a route to our add a route for our RT, which stands for route table, to our IGW. And I think that's pretty much everything we need to do that. So let's go ahead and figure that out. I'm going to go ahead and just launch up the AWS CLI here. Notice that it's launching this mode because I have an environment variable set here. So if you don't have it set, set it. If you don't know how, look it up. And so we want to do something with VPC. Now, everything's under EC2. So we'll have to type that, create VPC. So I just want to go up here and start typing this up. So we'll say AWS EC2 create VPC. And if we go down below, it should tell us what we need. So it doesn't say it's required, but we definitely need to have a CIDR block. Let's go ahead and add that in there. So we'll say CIDR block. And for this, we'll say 172.1.0.0/16. Because there's periods and other things, I'm just going to wrap this in quotations so that we don't run into any trouble here. There could be some other options that we might want to set. I'm going to go click down and just press down here and take a look. Nothing super exciting. Very straightforward in terms of its configuration. I'm not sure if it would automatically set the DNS host name, so we might have to configure things after the fact. But we'll go ahead here and say region. We'll say CA-Central-1. All right, so that'll be step 1. Okay. So yeah, that's fine. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and copy this command. And we'll make this into a script. I'm just going to make sure it works. So we get some feedback here. I'm going to go back and give this a refresh. And it did create it. It would be nice if this was tagged so we can see which one we're working with, because I don't want to accidentally delete the default one. I also called this 172.1.0.0, which is fine because then it doesn't conflict. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm just making sure I have the right amount of numbers. So that is fine. I don't even know if 172.1.0.0 is a real number, but it works. I was able to put it in there, so it's fine. But it has no conflict, so that's okay. But I would like to tag this. So what we'll do is look this up in the CLI. And we are going to look for tags. So there is some way to tag stuff. Tags. Tag specification down below here. So it's going to be something like this. Okay, I'm going to paste that in like that. And it's going to expect some kind of format. Resource type string tags. I'm not sure why we need a resource type. The type of resource on tag creation. The tags to apply to resource when the resource is being created. So this is if you want tags to propagate whenever you create resources. And that's not a bad idea. But what I really want is actually just tagging, which isn't exactly the same thing. So let's just search for tags a bit more. And, I just don't have confidence that this is how you apply a tag. So let's just carefully look here. Maybe there's like a way of naming it as opposed to tagging. All it shows is tag specification. So I'm not confident in this. So what I'm going to do is go over to ChatGPT, create a VPC with a tag name of hello. All right, let's see what it produces. maybe we're using the old CLI and that's our problem. We'll go here. Still nothing new, tags. So is it tag specification? That's what I want to know. Just give me the... You know what? It's because I didn't specify via the AWS CLI. Come on, tell me something here. Okay, let's just say, just tell me the command. Don't explain anything. Thank you. So it is tag specification. I really thought there would have been something on the end like tags. VPC, okay. Interesting. So we'll go here. And it makes sense to put this in single quotations here. The name will be my VPC 3. To make this a little bit easier to work with, I'm going to put in some backslashes. I usually like the region to be last, so I'll go ahead and do that. It already is defaulted to region CA Central 1, but I'm just being very explicit here just in case. Of course, if you're following along, you got to make sure you switch over to CA Central 1, but I think at this point you probably know that. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and, I mean, I'm going to want some output returned here because there might be some things that I want, like the actual VPC, the VPC ID. Might also want the CIDR block here. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll definitely want the VPC ID. So what we'll do here is just query this, and we'll just say VPC. And I think what we can do is do 0 and then do VPC ID. I'm just taking a guess here. If it messes up, we can just fiddle with it a bit. And I'm just hitting Q on the bottom here to quit out of the CLI, but the CLI for me is frozen for some weird reason. There we go. And so we'll try this again. Hit enter. And it's hanging. Not exactly sure why it's hanging. I mean, I don't think we deleted the old one, did we? No. But if we go back here, yeah, it's not being responsive. So I'll just close that out. And we should really delete the other one before we proceed here. So the other one was the one, this one here, right? So we'll go ahead and delete that. Delete. And I'm going to go back over to here, and I'm going to copy this again. Now, I think that it said VPCs and not VPC. Let's just double check the output here. All the way to the bottom, there should be some output maybe. Or it will explain, no, it's just VPC, okay. All right, well, let's see what we get then. We'll copy this, and we'll paste it in here. Now, because we're in a different tab, we're not going to get that autocomplete, which is fine. It is not cooperating here today. Right-click, paste, hit enter. And we get null back. So it doesn't mean that it didn't work. It just means it didn't like our query. Yeah, so we didn't like our query. We'll go back here ahead and try this again. So we'll go and delete this one. And it didn't like our query. So what we can do, I'm going to need that flag. I'm going to go back over to here and just grab it. Paste it in, just say, how do we assign them again? I should know this. Export. It's going to be export. There we go. And so just say AWS, VPC, or sorry, EC2, VPC, CIDR block 172.2.0.0/16 query VPC. Oh, maybe just that. Okay, because it only returns one thing. I thought it came back in an array. And so I assumed that we'd have to do that, but maybe it's not an array, it's just this. Which is fine. If that's what it is, that's great. Okay, and so we're getting back kind of what we want. It's wrapping it in quotations because it's returning back JSON. So I'm just going to go here and just say output as text. And so that should fix that. We'll go give this a refresh. Very good. We'll go ahead and copy this. We'll paste it in. We'll hit enter. And so we get back that. The reason I wanted to do this was so that we could assign it to a variable. This will capture it and assign it. So we'll just say VPC ID like this. You can do export. You don't necessarily have to, I don't think, but I'm going to go ahead and try this here. So we'll go and refresh this because we are creating a script, right? So we want this to continue on. And actually, if this is a script, we wouldn't put export in here. We would just have this, now that I think about it. And then we could echo this down below. So we'll just say $VPC ID. Sometimes in videos, I will just write these in README files. And sometimes I prefer to make scripts. I'm just trying to give you more experience in different ways. So you'll see me alternating in different videos how I'm teaching. And so it didn't return anything, but that doesn't mean that nothing was assigned. But in our script, it probably would have echoed that out. So I'm not too concerned about it. I do believe that is working. We can go ahead and just quickly test this by running our script. We'll have to chmod it. I don't think we did that earlier. So we'll go here and say VPC basics, VPC. I'm actually going to change this to say create VPC. And then we'll have one which will be like, really doesn't like that I renamed that. Shouldn't be that hard to rename. Come on, you can do it. Maybe there's issues with Gitpod right now because it's normally not this problematic for renaming stuff. While that's thinking really hard, I'm going to go ahead and say create VPC. Yeah, there's something wrong going on here. I think it's just my environment. So what I'm going to do, this is a bit of a pain, but I think I'm going to have to just stop the video here or pause the video and come back to it in a moment, okay? Till this is resolving. I just waited a while here and it's finally resolved itself. Again, I'm not sure what the hanging was for, but it is back now, so that's okay. But we create, anyway, we assign that VPC ID, but I want to have another script here. I'm going to call this one delete VPC. And the idea is that we will create it in one script and tear it down the other one. Again, I'm not sure why this is hanging so badly, but I guess we'll wait here a little bit, okay? Again, waited a long time, but it did eventually create a file. I'm not sure why, but all the windows are becoming very unresponsive. There we go. Is this one still broken? Yeah, I don't know. Give me a second. Yep, not exactly sure what's wrong here, but what I'm going to go ahead to do is just add everything. Commit files. And what I'll have to do is just stop and restart this workspace. Not sure why it's having troubles, but right now I'm not technically using Terraform, so I'm just going to, well, I kind of want to leave it installed. I guess I don't need PowerShell. So bye-bye PowerShell for now. And hopefully that gives me less issues. This is what it's like. It's you'll be working and then you'll run into issues. But I'll be back here in just a moment. I'm just going to stop and relaunch a new one, okay? All right, I just restarted it here. But anyway, we'll continue on. And so the idea is that if we create it, then we should be able to quickly tear it down. But I'll go ahead and just chmod. It's doing some funny loading here. We'll chmod that other file here. So VPC basics, delete VPC. So now they're both executable, but the idea is that if we want to create something, we also want to be able to delete it. So we'll just say delete VPC. And this one probably works backwards because as you are deleting stuff, you want to do it in the reverse order, I believe, as opposed to creating. But we'll go down here and just type in AWS VPC or EC2 VPC, delete VPC, and see what options we need to provide. Delete VPC. And it just wants the VPC ID. Okay, so we'll grab this and we'll paste it in as such. VPC ID. There is a way to bash script that takes one argument and assigns it to an nvar in the script. Okay. I'll just get some basic code here. I usually copy from something else, but I mean, technically that would work. Okay, if statement, if it's not present. And that's actually how I would do it. I would set it like that for sure. So I'm going to copy this example here because I'm happy with that one. And so just above here in our script, I'll go paste that in. We'll need this first line here. And so this is going to get assigned to VPC ID. Okay. And so now the idea is if we go back over to here, we don't have any VPCs. That's totally fine. I'm going to go back and just cancel out of this. And I want to run that script. So just to make my lives easier, I'm going to go into that basics folder. We're going to run that script. And so that should create the VPC. Notice it printed it out. So if I go back over to here and give this a refresh, we can see that it created it. If I want to go ahead and delete this, I'll do delete VPC. And do that. And if we go back over to here, it is now gone. So our create works, our delete works. Let's continue on with this script. So we'll want to create an IGW. I imagine that's going to be very similar. So we'll say AWS, EC2, IGW, or create IGW, or Internet Gateway. It does not require anything, so we'll go ahead and just do that. I would like to associate it, so we'll have to have, there's probably like an associate one. Again, just guessing here, but associate internet nope, not what I was hoping for. So associate, or maybe it's attach, because you can attach it, right? Attach, there it is, Internet Gateway. And it will want to have the IGW, Internet Gateway ID, and then we'll want to have the VPC ID, I imagine. It's actually auto-completing, which is nice, but that's not what I need right now. So just do that, and we'll want the VPC ID, so I'll go ahead and grab this here, because we know we're going to need to attach it. From here, we're going to want to have the actual VPC ID, or the Internet Gateway ID. I'm not exactly sure what it would be, so we'll go ahead and take a look here. Attach. We could also just grab the command here as well and just utilize it down here below. Create Internet Gateway. We'll say query. Internet Gateway. And then we want the ID like that. So that is how we're going to grab that there. And we'll say output text. This will be our IGW ID. And we'll echo that out as well. So that should be good. Then we should be able to attach it. So we'll say IGW ID, and we'll say VPC ID. We'll go back over to here, and before we delete the VPC, we need to detach the IGW, and we need to delete the IGW. Fun stuff, eh? But this is how you get good. You have to put this time in here and do that. And this is not listening to me. I can't get this to get out of here. Oh boy, this one works? Nope, they all just hang. What the heck? Like every second. This one's fine. This one's fine. Utilities is not fine. This one's hanging. As long as one of them's working. And notice I'm erasing it, it keeps coming back. So again, not sure what's going on here, but what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to have to launch this in my local editor. And so there's an option in Gitpod where I can just say, open in VS Code. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now, okay? All right, well, I would say this is being extremely unreliable here today. So what I'm going to do is actually use code spaces. I usually don't do that, but you know, sometimes you just got to do what you need to do to get things to work. Git commit. Notice I can barely type and get anything done here today. Git commit -m add files. But that's the thing about cloud. There's always other options and you can work around them. Luckily, I've gotten really good at code spaces as of recently because I did a GitHub certification course and I had to go deep dive on code spaces. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is say create a code space. They do have a free tier, so it's not that major of an issue, but I'm going to have to do some configuration to get this environment working. It more acts like a virtual machine where Gitpod, when you shut things down, it's like turning off a container or it just stops after a while, where this one you have to be a little bit more careful about shutting it down so you're not overutilizing it. But you know, if you didn't attach your credit card to anything, then it's not going to cost you anything, so it's not that big of a deal. So I'm opening this up in code spaces, and what I need to have installed is the AWS CLI. And if I want to utilize AWS CLI, I need to configure a dev container JSON. So what I can do is go down here in the bottom left corner, open up command palette. I'm going to look up dev container configuration file. And I'm going to create a new one because I don't have one yet. And in here, I mean, all I really want is AWS. So it doesn't really matter what it launches, but here it says simple Alpine container. I want to use the default one. So I'm going to say default Linux Universal. So that is probably the one that is being used right now. And what I want in here is the AWS CLI. And we'll go checkbox that on. And at some point I might want Terraform, but right now the CLI is totally fine for me. It says, we've noticed you changed the dev container. Rebuild the container to apply that now. So I'm going to go up to command palette, and I'm just going to type in build. And here we'll do a code space rebuild. I will give it a moment to rebuild, okay? It's rebuilding, right? There we go, yep. Rebuilding recreates the code space. Let's go ahead and do that. See you back here in just a second, okay? All right, so there we go. After that rebuild, we should have the AWS CLI. I'll go down below here and type in AWS. We'll see if that shows up. The only thing is that we are not connected to anything right now, so I'm going to have to go over here. And you've seen me do this a bunch of times in labs here. But I have to go over to IAM, and what I'll need to do is I'll need to create new credentials. So under my users here, and I'm doing AWS examples for my security credentials. I'm going to leave this other key around because I don't want to have to go back and rotate it right now, but we'll go ahead and hit next, and we'll create a new access key. And the way we set them in here is it's called secrets. So if I go back over here, type in secrets, manage user secrets, we'll go ahead and click that. And we can add stuff. We can manage it on GitHub as well. It's a bit easier to manage it on GitHub as opposed to entering in that little thing. And you can see I have some stuff in here from November, which is very old and probably not the credentials that I'm looking for right now. But we can create a new secret. And I want an access key ID. And I'll grab this one, paste that in. I'm going to select the repo, so I'm saying AWS examples. There it is, good. So that's that first value. I don't want to show the second one here, so I'm just going to pause the video and just assume that you have to follow through as well the same way. I'm also just going to add in a default region here so I don't have to worry about constantly choosing CA Central 1 here. Add that secret. Now, even though we have, oh, it says your code spaces secrets have changed. Reload to apply. So we'll click reload to apply. I'm going to wait and see if anything happens here. I keep expecting something to happen. Sometimes it's a bit delayed in code spaces, so you have to be very patient. There we go. See, yep, you had to wait. You know, Gitpod, really great product when it works. When it doesn't, for whatever reason, then it's very frustrating. But it hasn't really happened to me a lot. It's just for whatever reason this week, I've just been having a lot of trouble with it. So, but you know, Code Spaces is a good backup. If Code Spaces didn't work, we could use Cloud9. There's just tons of options for us to utilize. I don't want to use that down below here. But this one tends to forget your configuration, so it's a little bit frustrating to have to go in here and keep bumping up fonts and doing all that stuff. But I'm just going to increase this here, and we'll find terminal size here, terminal. Bring this up to 20 so we can see what we're doing. There we go. And we're back to business. So we'll go ahead under our, wow, S3, we did a lot. We'll go into VPCs, and so we'll continue on with our creating our basic stuff. We did not create yet, but we want that IGW and that VPC ID. So let's go ahead and see what happens if we run this here. And I'm noticing that this is unresponsive. Oh, it's typing though. Oh, you know why? I was trying to hit up as if there was like a previous command to type, and there isn't. But let's make sure that we can actually do something here. So I'm going to say get caller identity. Okay, so there we go. We are authenticated. And I'm going to CD into that folder, VPC Basics. And we will create the VPC. And we have a spelling mistake here, so we'll have this output. Another thing that we can do is if one of these commands fail, we can set E, and that should quit on the, I think it's set E, which will quit on the first instance of something. What does set E do in a bash script? I think that's what it is. I just always forget. Execute, yeah, that exactly. That's what we want. So now that that's in our script, we'll go back over to code spaces here. One thing I don't like about code spaces is the icon looks the same thing as your repo, so it does get a bit confusing. But if we go back over to our VPC ID, or VPC, here it is. We'll go ahead and delete that. Good. And we'll try this again. So say create VPC. Line 21. Line 21. Oh, we need a / on the end there. So let's go check our internet gateway now. And notice we have it over here. It's not supposed to be there. We'll just delete that. And so maybe this time it will work. We'll try this again. Create VPC. Very good. So it created both those there. If we go back over to our VPC here and give this a refresh. Under VPC, sorry. And we have two. Apparently, you could just name them the same. There's no conflict. So one of these is our new one. One of these is our old one. Resource map. So that one has no connection. That one over here has it. So this is our latest one, but we really want to get rid of both of these. So I'll just individually delete these right now. Delete. Delete. Fun stuff, eh? And we'll say delete. Since it's so easy to delete via the console, I think we'll just focus on the creation actions, and then we'll do all the delete afterwards. But we've attached our internet gateway. We need to create a subnet. I would really like to have that partial command on, so we'll look it up. Say AWS CLI on partial, because I always forget what the environment variable is. Here it is. Allow. We'll just say export on partial. Is that what it is? Or maybe it's all lowercase. Clear AWS. EC2. And we'll want to create a subnet, so create subnet. And it will want a VPC ID. So go here and say AWS EC2 VPC, create subnet VPC ID. That'll be our VPC ID here. It's not specifying anything else, but definitely you would have to provide a decider block, which is weird because it would be required. It says this parameter is required on IPv6. No, not exactly. So we know that this one is this one here. So we'll grab that. Then we'll go down below. And we'll paste this in. That's our CIDR block. And we will, what will we do here? We have CIDR block 172.100.16, and that technically will work. We want this to be 20 though. And so that's fine. So we'll see if that works. Great. Create the subnet, good. And we can query that and say query subnet ID if we want that. I'm not sure if that's what we need, but we might. Subnet ID. I keep thinking I have Vim commands in here. I don't. Don't install Vim unless you know how to use Vim, but I'm just going to install it so that I can move a lot quicker in here. So that would give us the subnet ID. Whoops. And so that should get us the subnet ID. We'll just say echo subnet ID. Probably want to explicitly associate it. We'll look that up. AWS CLI associate subnet to route table, which is going to be over here. Associate to subnet in your VPC. We'll go down examples. That one looks pretty good. We'll go back over here, paste it in. So we have route table and subnet. We would need to know what our route table is. We don't really know because it was created with the VPC. We might be able to get it from there, but I think we might want to describe or get route table from subnet or from VPC. I'm going to be lazy here. Using the AWS CLI, get the route table, get the default route table for the VPC, for the provided VPC. Just show me the command, don't explain. Describe route tables, it's applying a filter, and yeah, that makes sense. So go ahead and copy this. And so what we would need to do is we would need to get the RT ID, route table ID. And we're going to apply our filter. This filter is a little bit more complex than usual. I'm going to say output text just because I don't want it to be wrapped in quotations. And the other part here is it says VPC ID. That's fine. We need to actually provide the VPC ID here. So it's a $ VPC ID. That should get interpolated. It says association.main because that's how you get the default table. So that should technically work. And we're not asking for the main VPC. We're asking for the main route table, the default route table. So yeah, that should assign it over here. And hopefully that prints out. And then the idea is we just do RTID. And then here we do subnet ID. And so that should associate that route table. And then the last thing would be creating a route. But let's make sure this works first. We'll go back over here to our VPCs, give it a refresh. We'll go ahead and delete our new VPC. And we'll hit up. VPC, IGW ID, subnet, a bunch of stuff back. So we came pretty close to getting what we want. Which one messed up here? I mean, this one should have been wrapped here, so that's not a big deal. We'll just say subnet ID. Unknown command for this. And it could be that we need to apply a query on this. So it might be printing out all the information. Notice I said text and it came out like this. So that's probably our issue, is that it doesn't grab just the route table ID. If we go back here, only query the route table ID from describing the route table, please. Hopefully doesn't describe anything to us. Good, thank you. And this is what we're missing here. So go back over here and we will paste that in. So I'm pretty confident that's going to fix that issue there. We'll go back and remove this again. Super fun, but you know what? All this practice makes perfect. You want to be a cloud engineer, you got to know how to do this. Should be following along here. Don't just watch. We'll go ahead and create that again. VPC, IGW, subnet ID, RTID, associated. Good. We need to still do a little bit more. Like another thing that might not be obvious is that notice that DNS hostname is not enabled, which means that our VPCs, when they're launched, they're not going to get host names, which is like a friendly. It's like getting a domain name for your instance. And so you might want to have that enabled. And so that's something that we might want to turn on. I know that's like through configure. So say, we'll just say configure VPC to have DNS host names turned on. So tell it to do that. And that's going to be the modify VPC attribute. I can't even be bothered to look that up. I know this is correct, so we'll do that. And we'll go here. Turn on DNS host names. So that's one configuration we'd have to be concerned about. VPC ID. Okay. Another one is that these route tables, or subnets, I should say. I'm not sure which ones are ours, but it doesn't matter which one we look into. I'm going to refresh this for a moment. If we look into, it's down here actually. If we look into any of these subnets, there should be an option to whether it will assign an IP address or not. And that's what I'm looking for right now. At least that's what over here. Auto assign a customer-owned IPv4. Because if it doesn't have this, auto assign, this is technically a private subnet. Okay. There's no difference between a public and private subnet, with the exception that a private subnet, it's assumed that you don't have public IP addresses. So by not auto assigning it, that'd be the case, but you technically could have those there. But just say configure subnet to have auto assign IPv4 address. And so now it's a modify subnet attribute, very similar to what we saw there before. So go ahead and copy that. Back over to here. And this will be associate subnet. First I want to create it, then we'll just say auto assign IPv4. Here, and we do have the subnet ID, so I'll go ahead and paste that in here. Undo, as it was not listening to me. The last thing is we need to add a route to our route table. And again, I'm going to just use ChatGPT for this. So add a route to our route table to our IGW. Please give me the CLI command. Thank you. Create a route to our route table to our destination CIDR block. Excellent. That looks good to me. No issues there. Worst case, if it didn't work, we just look up the docs. We know how to do that by now. And I'll go ahead and paste that on in here. So here we have the route table ID. So we'll go ahead and type in $RTID. Here we have the gateway. So we'll say IGW ID. I believe we have that. That's the destination. So that looks good to me. So this should essentially set up everything that we want. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go back over to here into our VPCs. I'm going to make sure we delete this as such. Delete. And we'll go ahead and do that. We'll create the VPC. Okay, it looks like it did everything. We'll go back here and give it a refresh. We'll inspect it. So the first thing, it has DNS host names enabled. Excellent. We'll go to our resource map. Looks good, looks good. We'll check our route table. Look, it says 1 subnet association, 2 routes including local. The IGW is connected. Let's take a look at our subnet. It says no IPv6. We'll go into subnets. And it is somewhere over here. Refresh. It's down below. Auto assign. Excellent. So that is the proper way to set it up. Let's look at deleting. Yeah, you thought we were done. No, we have to do all of this here. So we'll go over to delete. And I'll speed it up a bit. So we'll say, I want AWS CLI commands for detach, and IGW, delete a subnet, delete a route table, delete a detach, delete an IGW, delete a VPC. So go ahead and hit these commands and hopefully it will just produce them for us. Okay, I'm just going to copy these and try to get them in the correct order. So we do want to detach for sure. I believe we have to do that beforehand, otherwise it'll complain. We want to delete our route table at some point. I would do that after we get rid of the IGW. I'm not sure if we have to delete the routes first. We definitely want to delete our VPC, so we've already done that. We need to delete our subnet. We'll go back over here. So delete subnet. I think that's everything. Detach, delete subnet, delete route table, delete VPC. And so this needs to take more than a single parameter. And it's going to need the internet gateway, the subnet, the route table, the VPC. So we have the VPC ID. This will be IGW ID. We'll fix the numbers here in just a moment. Okay. And we have the route table ID. So we just have to kind of figure out what order we want this to be in. So I would say VPC, IGW, route table, subnet is the order. So it'd be $1. We know like what numbers is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. So VPC ID is first, IGW second. We can't delete a route table first. We'll have to do that last. We'll say subnet and then route table. RT. Okay, so that's going to be the order of this. So this is 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. All right. We'll say $IGW ID. We'll say VPC ID. Subnet ID. RT ID. Okay, and so I think this should work, right? We'll go ahead and hit up. Oh, I'm creating. Why? And I didn't enter anything in. Okay, we'll go back over to here. We'll see that we have more than one VPC. Again, I'm really surprised that you can create more than one. I really thought at one point that they complained about that, but maybe they changed it. So we'll try this one more time. We'll say create VPC. You know what we could have done at the end of the script? We could have printed it out so it's a lot easier to work with. So we'll say delete VPC. And so we need the VPC ID first, the IGW second, the subnet third. It's actually in the correct order that we need it to happen in. And then this, okay? Or at least how we specified it. Let's see if that works. Enter. So it says, when calling the delete route table operation, the route table has dependencies and cannot be deleted. So we have to disassociate it before that happens. Another thing is that I just want to make my life easier. And so at the end, I just want to print out this command so that I don't have to continually print out this command here. So let's say echo. And this way it'll be $VPC ID, $IGW ID, $subnet ID, $RT ID, right? So we'll go here and we'll print out that command for later on. But disassociate a subnet to an RT to a route table via AWS CLI. Okay, because that's something that we will need to do. I didn't think we'd have to do that. And we will go back over to here. Add a route. We want to delete. Disassociate subnet. Don't worry if you don't spell it right. No one's going to look. Just, you're going to notice I did that. And we need the RT association ID. Really? Come on. Okay, we'll go back here. I wasn't done with this script. Get the associate route table ID using the VPC ID using the AWS CLI. Okay. Sometimes you have to do intermediate queries to get stuff. It's kind of annoying, but this is how it goes. If you know the route table ID, well, yes, I do. I know the subnet as well. Can we narrow it down more? Yep. Because it seems like we have to use query and filter for that, and it's a lot easier to let a program do this. We'll go back over to here, and we'll paste that in here. And so this will be the RTDB ID, I guess. Or we'll just call it the assoc ID. Assoc ID. That could have gone wrong real quick there, but it didn't. And we'll just put parentheses. And, you know, I'm reading all the stuff we're doing, so I don't just paste commands in. I'm always looking at what they're doing. So if you don't understand them, make sure you know before you run them. Just don't blindly copy paste stuff, okay? We have the association subnet ID here. It's going to want the subnet ID right here. That's fine. I think that should work. And then same thing here. subnet ID. Shouldn't it want the route table ID? Interesting. If we go back over here, like this one, like you explicitly specified, so why wouldn't we do that here? I'm not sure why it didn't do that. Sometimes it also makes stuff up, so this might not even be correct if we don't look up the documentation. But we know what the RT is, so we'll just say RTID. I'm going to just assume that I can do this. I'm going to try that out. Just going to double check that. And then we'll paste that in here. But this could totally muck up on us, so we'll find out. I'm going to say echo assoc ID, $ assoc ID. Good. So maybe this will work. I'll go back here, see if I have anything. I don't. That's fine. We'll type in clear. Create VPC. Hoping that last command helps us out. Good. And now we'll go see if we can delete it. We'll try this again. Another thing we could do is, for that reassociation, we could print it out and just pass it along. Here it says unexpected token AWS. It's because we're missing the $ here. We'll go back and we'll delete. We'll say delete. And we will go back over here. Give it a moment. Did it delete? Yes, we'll create it again. There's no way that you would not know how VPCs work after spending all this time with me just making them 100 times, eh? Calling the create internet gateway operation max number of internet gateways. It seems like it might not be deleting all the other ones. Let's go here. And look, we have detached ones, but it's not necessarily deleting them. So maybe when you actually delete it via the VP, like the CLI wasn't getting, or the console here wasn't getting rid of them, which I'm really surprised. Not a big deal. These don't like, it's not like they cost anything having them hang around, but we do have to do a little bit of work to get rid of this here. We'll go over here. Did it actually create some stuff? It did. So we'll try this again. Create. Okay, cool. Let's try this. Enter. Now, if we're having a hard time with that disassociate, and there we go. We already have a problem with it. If we're having an issue with it, we could always fiddle with that a bit. Line 42. So yeah, our query didn't seem to work. What I'm going to do, just to make our life a little bit easier, I'm going to go back to this script, because we can fiddle with this all day and try to grab that, but the other thing is that we could probably just get it from here. Because I imagine that this command probably has that associate ID. And then we can technically be done. Sometimes you just got to do that in your life, you know, you got to make your life easy for yourself. All it does is return an association ID. So if we do output here, output text and query this assoc ID, not the best way, but it will work. Just gonna put that on the end. We'll put it in the proper order. So this will be subnet ID and then this assoc ID, which I think is silly that we have to include it, but let's just do it anyway. And so we have this here. We'll bring this down. This will be our assoc ID. This will be number 4. And number 4. We'll do number 5. And we'll do number 5. We'll go all the way down to the bottom. I'm just going to make sure, yep, that matches good. And we should probably echo out that assoc ID if we're not. Associate subnet. Here. And we'll go back over to here. We'll give this a refresh. The only way we would have known that that internet gateway was not getting deleted was the fact that we did this so many times. And that's why it's so important when you're learning cloud to repeat the thing you're doing 100 times over, so that you get that kind of differences there. A lot of people, they just go through it, they do it once, and they would never know, like, this was never deleted. So make sure you repeat. I'm just going to close that tab out. We don't need it anymore. Let's go back over to here. I'm just going to hit clear on that, Control C. And let's go ahead and create. I think we printed it out on the bottom. Yes, we did. Good. I wanted to do CloudFormation in this video, but I figured we don't need to do that again. We've already given people enough pain here. We are running into an issue on the output on line 59. It's because we're missing this here. Query associate ID. Oh yeah, that's all that's missing. Okay. So it did not work still. So close. Internet gateway. This time it actually got rid of it. So, you know, just double checking. Go ahead and create the VPC. Good. Now let's see if we can get rid of it all. Now this we're manually doing, so something could happen here and not work. The route table has dependencies and cannot be deleted. So we go down here. We disassociated it. Maybe it's talking about the routes. Let's go in here and find out. So if we go in here and take a look at our route table, it's not exactly saying which one it is. Let's pull this up. That's the main. It says 2 routes. It's not that one. I don't think it's that one. VPCs. It deleted the VPC, but it said it didn't work. So did it not actually delete it? Is it possible that the VPC deleted it? Let's go ahead and just comment that out. So let's say we try this again. We just got to pay attention to our route tables because here we have more than what we should have. Or at least I think so, but we'll go back over to our VPC. We'll try this one more time. Again, I think we're done, but I just want to confirm that we know what we're looking at, okay? Excellent. We'll go back over here. I want to confirm with the route tables what we see. There it is. Let's enter. No errors this time, but it looks like the VPC carried away the rest of it with it. So there you go. I think that's sufficient for VPCs for the basics, and we'll see the next one. Okay, ciao. Oh, actually, before we go, I just want to make sure you're not wasting any money. So normally, like, I'm not worried about Gitpod, but with this, you definitely want to stop your workspace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to the command prompt. I'm going to say stop, or we'll say code spaces, maybe code spaces. And we can stop this. Before we do, I want to commit my code. I just kind of want to keep everything I have here. So configure dev container and add VPC basics. Okay. We'll just say, okay, that's fine. Push, push, push. And we'll go back over to here and we'll just say code spaces. I'm looking for stop current workspace. So we'll stop that. And that way you aren't wasting your free credits for your workspace. Okay, we'll see you in the next one. Ciao.